Since 2009, scholar athletes in Boston have been getting added support from a program started by the city in partnership with Suffolk Construction. The Scholar Athletes program has expanded with locations in schools in Boston and in Springfield. To talk about what the program has accomplished and some new initiatives is the new executive director, Daphne Griffin. Thank you very much for being with us, Daphne.
Great, thank you for having me.
Prior to this, you worked for Mayor Menino, and even going farther back, you ran the Boys and Girls Club at Blue Hill Ave and Talbot Ave, right between a couple of housing projects, all those turf tensions. What did you learn from that experience?
I mean, I think, the one thing that stands out for me is the richness of community. Being at Blue Hill at that time, the club really played a central role in building, the next wave of leaders, being able to have an impact on young people and really just, for them to shine in such a way that leverage their talents, their expertise, and really just giving back to community that was already there. That gem was already there. And so when I look back at, at those days, that's the one thing that stands out is that engagement, that, the opportunities that we have to give our young people. And it's funny that you mentioned that too, because some of those young people I still stay in contact today that now have their own families. And are leading successful lives. So that's the part that keeps me grounded.
Well, that whole dynamic of the club, the safe space, people can feel at ease. You're trying to replicate that away in Boston high schools, I guess, right?
Yeah, completely. We want our zones, our dedicated, these vibrant learning spaces, to really be that safe space that our zone members, our young people can come in and really get the support that they need, connect with, and have a positive relationship with a caring adult. And those are our program coordinators. And so being able to have a space for young people that's dedicated to their academic support and success, is really critical. And especially when we're the only ones in the high school arena with that level of dedicated space.
But tell me a little more detail. What exactly goes on in these zones?
These zones. So each of our zones are dedicated spaces in high schools in Boston, Springfield, and soon to come online, Everett. And we have full-time staff that are located in these spaces, and they provide academic support, coaching, mentoring. We engage young people around athletics, both with rostered athletes, but also those aspiring athletes that may not think about themselves as being on a rostered team. But for us, I was probably one of those kids where I haven't thought of the potential of the opportunity, but how do we engage young people around their own physical fitness and wellness? And so these spaces are really, our version of a high school student union, a college student union, where they can come in, they can connect with their friends, they can collaborate around their homework and just get the supports that they need to be successful.
Another thing that occurs to me is that, our high schools don't have really neighborhood enrollment in most cases, and you don't have that kind of neighborhood sports following that you might have in some other communities. But you have these zones, you got these things on the wall, the trophies. I mean, it sounds like you walk into that spirit when you go into this room.
Exactly. We feel like the zones are the hub of, the high school that they're in. They're really, supporting school spirit. They really galvanize the school community around a mascot. And some of the high schools that we've worked with, that necessarily didn't exist before. And so being able to have, that school community supporting a sports culture, in our high schools and really engaging our young people in that way is huge. And it has benefits for the overall school community.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with Daphne Griffin from Scholar Athletes. What about taking these programs to another level? Anything that's going to be rolling out pretty soon?
Definitely. So, as you mentioned, in 2009, it started off as a public-private partnership. And then it really was around supporting infrastructure. It was around, providing academic supports and homework help, tutoring. But now what we've done is we have a new program model called Playbook. And that's really looking at much more intentional supports, services that focus on young people, academic coaching and mentoring, so that we can really see some movement around increased grades, GPAs, and making sure that our student athletes can remain eligible to play, because we know the benefits of sports participation. We're also looking at social emotional engagement for young people. We know that balance is critically important to really look at the whole student and the whole day. So these services are much more intentional, focused, with services for 9th and 10th graders, but also for 11th and 12th, and making sure that all of this is rolled up so that they have, post-secondary plan, college career. We want them to make sure that they're graduating high school with, a clear direction.
Now, you mentioned maintaining eligibility. I guess, unfortunately, for a lot of students in the schools in Boston, that can be a struggle because of the academics, right?
It can be. And in many cases, for those kids, with this new model, what we're able to do is target those young people, work with our partners in the school, the coaches. If it's Daphne that's on the verge, how do we intervene sooner rather than later? So that way, the eligibility piece, really keeps them playing the game. We know that they're engaged. We know, same thing with when I was at Boys and Girls Club. Kids that are involved and actively involved in, enrichment programs or any kind of after-school program have higher gains. So that's a big thing for us.
Another thing you're doing through this program is helping students through intramural programs.
Yes.
What's important about that?
So what's great is that, with the new playbook, we're really looking at not only student athletes, but what we call our aspiring athletes. And that would have been me in high school. Just, those young people that, right now may not see themselves completely in a roster team, but have an interest. And so what we want is for those 9th and 10th graders, for example, that come into a school, may not be ready for tryout for a varsity team. How do we build the skill? How do we get them engaged and physically active? How do we create team and school culture and community just through intramurals, especially if a school doesn't have a freshman or a JV team? This really allows our underclassmen, our 9th and 10th graders, to still stay part of that sports culture.
Because there's this self-esteem factor here, because not every student really has these lofty aspirations to be a professional athlete, but they want to belong to a team, don't
Yes.
they?
And we know that's, research shows us that that's such a critical skill, a life skill of teamwork, communication, all of these things when they're participating in any kind of sports or athletic program, that they're building these life skills. And this is really what's going to help them in their future success.
Well, we should finally mention, if people want to get some more information about what you're doing at Scholar Athletes, is some way they can check that out?
Yes. Visit our website, wearesa.org. Has a lot of information about our locations. If people are interested in volunteering, connecting with the work that we're doing, that's the first place to start.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Great.
Daphne Griffin from Scholar Athletes.